Hello ladies and gents, in the previous video we have enabled routing for our application, and now let's create a product detail page and navigate to it using our router. Let's go back to our app and start by creating a new view named detail.view.xml, and let's copy the view definition from our home view. And inside, let's for now add a page control with a title that says product detail page, just as a placeholder, an empty page with a title. And now let's go ahead and create a new route and a target. So we go to our manifest.json file. Let's copy this home route and duplicate it. This time let's set the pattern to detail, so our URL will be index.html/detail. Let's also name it detail, and the target name, let's set it to target detail. Now let's also copy this target here, copy and paste our target name, and the ID, let's set it to ID target detail. The view to be displayed will be the detail view, and we will set level to 2, and we will see why in a second. Now using our router, let's navigate to our detail page when we click on a product. For that, let's go to our home view and find our press event handler for our items here on item press, and let's go to our home controller, find our event handler, and let's comment out everything. Also these ones. And here at the top, first let's get our router, and we will do it a little differently this time, since we are not inside the component.js file but inside the controller. Let's say our router equals sap UI core.UI component dot get router for, and then we pass in our controller instance using this keyword. And then we can simply say our router.nav2 and just pass in the name of our new route, which is detail. Let's save and check our app. Here we have our products, and if we click on one of the products, we see our empty page with the title that we set, and we can see our hash here after a slash character. And if we go back using the back button of our browser, we will end up in our home page again. Just to make sure everything is crystal clear, let's check what we have done so far and what it means. Now this pattern here is what we see in our URL when we navigate to our route, so it's this part right here. And the name of our pattern we used for navigating to our detail page, so it corresponds to this one, and it points to our target detail, and it points to us to detail page. And now what this level does is, like we mentioned in the previous video, it determines the direction of our transition animation, which is a slide animation. So if we go back and forth, you can see that the pages are sliding in and out. And since we set the level as 1 for our home page and 2 for the detail, we can see that when we navigate to the detail page, the home page is sliding to left, and vice versa once we are navigating back. Now let's go ahead and fill our detail page up. Now we will keep our page, but the title will come from a product. We will do the bindings later, but let's add them as placeholders for now. And let's also check all the fields that we have available to us. Let's check our metadata. and find the product entity. Then we will set this name attribute as our page title. Let's also give our page an ID. Let's say ID detail page. Then we have the title, and first let's add an object header to our page. Here, object header, which will have a title again. And again, let's set it as the name attribute of our product. And let's also show the price of our product here with the number attribute. And we say parts, since we will use multiple bindings here. For the first one, our path will be the price. So this one right here. And we also need a currency, but we will hard code that for now. Let's say here path currency. There is no currency field in our raw data, so we will hard code it. Then let's set the type of our number as SAP UI model type.currency. And lastly, some format options, actually just one, and we say show measure false. And as I said, let's hard code. Actually, let me format this a little better first. And this can be self-closing. And let's, like I said, hard code our number unit, which will be euros, so EUR. And as for the main content of our page, let's use an icon tab bar so we can split the information into two. So we say icon tab bar, and let's give it a CSS class, a predefined class, SAP UI responsive content padding. And let's add our items, which will be icon tab filters. The first one, let's give it a key and say details. Let's also give it a text from our i18n file and call it details. And let's create it before we forget. And inside, let's create a form, a simple form, but we have to define the namespace for the layout first. Let me copy this one. It will, let's name it form, and it will come from SAP UI layout.form. And here we say form.simpleForm, and quickly add our properties. Editable should be false. Then we set the layout property to responsive grid layout. Next, let's set the label spans. Label span x large 3 is good. Then we have large, also 3. Medium, again 3 is okay, and for small, let's fill up the whole row, so it's 12. And let's add adjust label span to false as well. Then let's set the empty spans. Again, x large, large, medium, and small. 4 is okay for all. Here, large, medium, again 4, and for small it should be 0. Then let's set the columns for the X large, large and medium lastly, and we want to see only one column in each layout, so we set everything to 1 here. And finally let's set the single container full size to false as well. Okay, and this should be columns, not dots. Okay, and as for our content, we say form column content, and as always we begin with a label, and this one will be for the name of the product, so we say I18 and name. Let's check if we already have the name key. We don't. Let's create it. And to display it, we add a text control here, and the text will come from here as well. Let's just copy it. Next, let's display the description of our product. Actually, let's duplicate these two. Here, let's say description. And let's quickly check if we actually have a field named description. And here, indeed, we have it. Actually, let me open this in a new tab so it's easier to copy and paste. And next, let's display the release date. Actually, we should have these keys. No, okay, but we do have release date. Let's use that. And from the OData, it will be this field. But this time it will be formatted, so we say path is this. Then we need to type as SAP UI model type dot date, and let's also specify the format options. In here we set style to short, and let's do the same for the discontinued date. And move on to our second tab. Let's copy this icon tab filter here, duplicate it, and this time let's display this supplier information. Set the key to supplier, and also let's create a text entry named supplier. Okay, we don't have it. And all the settings should remain the same. Let's just change the content here, and let's begin with the name of our supplier. So if we check the supplier relation, it should point to this entity type here, and again we have a name property here, and let's use that. But since we will be using a navigation property, this one here, we have to first specify that and then /name. And next, let's see what we have available for the supplier. We have the address, for example, so let's use that one. And if we check the address, it's a complex type, so it's one more level deep. And let's begin with the street. Let me actually remove these. so we don't get confused. Okay, next we set street. And then again it will come from supplier slash address this time, and one more level deep, which is named street here. Next, let's display the city of our supplier, city. And it will be very similarly named, just city. Next, let's display the zip code. And the property is zip code. And let's see what else we have. We have the country and state, so let's add those two as well. 1, 2, state, country, and this one is the state, this one is country. And let's create our text keys as well. Alright, that was quite long. Let's check our app and see what our detail page looks like now. And indeed, we don't have a title yet because we have our bindings here, but they are empty, which we will take care of in another video soon. Then we have our icon tab filter, and we have two tabs here, this one for the supplier and this one for the details of our product. Now we can navigate back using our browser's back button, but let's also add our own back button here at the header of our detail page. So let's go back to our detail view, and to our page here we will add two more properties. First one is named show now button, and we will set it to true, which is false by default. And it will just display this nice back button here. Then we need to specify an event handler for that button, which is called now button press. And let's name this on now back, and let's implement it in our detail controller, which we don't have currently. So first let's create it, detail.controller.js. And again, let's copy it from app controller, for example, and rename it to detail. And here we need one more dependency, which will be the history instance. So let's import it from SAP UI core routing / history and add it to our callback function. And now here let's implement our navigation event handler, which we named on now back. And first let's get our history instance. So we say const o history equals history dot get instance. Then let's try to get the previous hash from our history instance. And we say const as previous hash that was visited equals or history dot get previous hash. And lastly, let's get our router instance as well, and let's actually copy it from our home controller because we just did it here. And now as for navigating back, we have two scenarios here. Let's write them out. If there is a previous hash, navigate to it, else navigate to the home page. Which means if we have a hash in our navigation history, we will just navigate to that. But imagine we refreshed our page here in the detail page, then this will be the only entry in our history instance, so there will be no previous hash, in which case when we click on this button we will simply navigate to our home page. So let's implement it quickly. We say if as previous hash, let's actually copy it so I don't type it incorrectly. If it's not equal to undefined, here we say window.history.go and then pass in -1 for the previous hash. And else, if we don't have anything in the history, we use our router to navigate to our home page. So .nav to home. And let's also pass two more arguments here, which we will see in a future video. First, the arguments that we can pass in for our route, which will be an empty object. And then as for the third one, we will say true, which stands for no history. And we will also see what this means in a future video soon. Now let's save and first go back to our home page, refresh. Now we have our lists. Let's click on bread. We have our empty detail page, and if we click on this button, we get an error, I assume. Let's see. Now button press should be the name. And okay, I forgot to rename the controller. It should be detail. Now let's try again, refresh on the home page. Click detail page, and now I see a typo. Get instance. Third time lucky. To detail and back. And we can also use the back button of our browser. Now let's see the no previous hash situation. Let's go to our sources, controller, and first we have to go to the detail controller, and let's put a breakpoint here. And if we click on back, we should see the previous hash as an empty string, which makes sense because it was the home page we were in, and the hash we defined for it was an empty string anyway. So it will go into this block here, and then we will use the history object of our window and just go one back. But if we go to the detail page and refresh our page, there will be no history. And now if we click on back and check our previous hash, and now we see it's undefined, and this time it will go into this else block and it will navigate us back to our home page. That would be all for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you in the next one.